What's going on, guys? Today we're going to learn 10 parkour moves for beginners. So whether it's your first time trying parkour or you've already tried it, it's 10 great moves to start with. So the first trick we're going to learn is probably the most important one. It's called the shoulder roll. So it's the trick we use when you take a big drop and you want to absorb so it's less pressure in the knees and the ankles. So we go into the shoulder roll. So to start off, we're going to start really low and close to the ground. So you're going to bend your knees, get low to the ground, and put both hands on the ground like this. So you're going to put them sideways like this because we're going over the shoulder. So you're going to pick which side you want to go on. So I'm going on my left shoulder, so I'm going to go like this towards the right side. Once you do that, you're going to go over the shoulder and go from one side of your back to the other. So I'm going from this side to this side. So you're going to start real slow. It's going to look like this. You're going to put your hands on the ground, go over the shoulder, and then roll. So the faster you do it, the easier it'll be to get back on your feet after. So you want to practice that a few times until you're 100% comfortable with it. So once you're comfortable with the really low shoulder roll, we're going to be doing it from standing up. So it's going to be pretty much the exact same, but instead you're going to lower yourself and then go into it. So you're going to start standing up and then put your hands on the ground and then do the roll. So again, you want to practice that as many times as it takes until you're comfortable with it. So once you're comfortable with the standing up one, you're going to do it from jumping. So we're just going to jump as high as we can from the flat ground and then go into the roll as fast as possible. If you don't go into the roll fast enough, then there'll be too much pressure on your joints. And the main purpose of this trick is to remove the pressure from those parts of your body. So you want to make sure you practice going into the roll as fast as possible so that there's no pressure on your knees, on your ankles, and everything. Once you feel like you're going into the roll fast enough, then you can start doing it off of drops. So this is a good size to start with because you shouldn't get hurt even if you don't roll properly. So you want to practice with that. Make sure you're comfortable going into the roll right away. The next move we're going to learn is a dive roll. Obviously you want to know how to do the shoulder roll first because this is basically the same thing but with a jump before. This is an amazing progression for the front flip. The set is very similar with the arms up, so it'll get you a very similar jump than the front flip, and it'll get you practicing that before trying the actual flip. So just like the shoulder roll, we're going to start off doing it really low. So we're going to get ourselves really close to the ground like this, and then we're just going to jump in the shoulder roll. So I'm going to jump, put my hands on the ground in an angle like the shoulder roll, and then go into the dive roll. So it's going to look like this. Very small jump, hands, and then roll. So you want to practice that, make sure you get comfortable with it, and when you're comfortable, then you can try and jump a little higher. So you want to make sure every time that you're absorbing properly. You want to make sure you don't fall flat on your back because you can get hurt that way. You want to make sure you don't rush the process, so if you're not ready to jump higher, then make sure you stay low to the ground. So once you're comfortable jumping into it, we're going to do it from standing position. So it's going to look like this. You stand, and you're just going to be a little higher than before, but then you still jump into it. So jump and roll. So you can see that every time I'm doing it, I'm absorbing the roll on the ground, and I'm not jumping straight to my back. So if your roll looks like this, then you want to make sure you clean your tech. This is what you don't want to do. You see how I skipped my hands entirely? I didn't absorb. I went straight to my back and then bounced off of. That can be very dangerous when you're doing it outside. So that's why you want to make sure you take it slow. So once you're comfortable with the last step, you can start running into it. Running into it will get you more momentum, make you go further and higher. So you want to make sure you have the previous step down first. So it's going to look a little bit like this. Make sure you don't run too fast. You just want to jog into it and then jump and go into the roll. If you're comfortable with that, then you can start practicing with variations. You can play around with it and do dive rolls for distance or dive rolls for height. These can be very useful when you want to dive roll over a tall obstacle or over a long obstacle. So I'm going to show you one of both right now. So the next move is called a safety vault. So we're going to use this move to get you comfortable using obstacles and vaulting over them. So the first thing you want to do is walk towards the obstacle, and you're going to pick which hand and which foot you're going to put on it. So for me, I'm going to put my left hand and the opposite right foot. If you want to use your right hand, then you're going to use your left foot instead. So since my right foot is going on the obstacle, I'm going to jump off of my left foot. So off of the ground, I'm gonna jump off of my left foot and then put my left hand on the obstacle. So as I put my left hand on, I'm also gonna put my right foot on the other end of the obstacle. So it's gonna look like this, hand and foot. So from this point, it's really easy, and all you have to do is bring your other leg through the hole and towards the ground. So just like this, through the hole, on the ground, and you can keep running on the other side. That's all it is. You just gotta make sure you do it faster and faster every time. So as you get comfortable, you can walk a little faster into it and try and do it a little faster. And when you get really comfortable with it, it'll look something like this. You can see as my leg comes through, I'm kind of sticking my hips out so I can continue running after. So you wanna make sure that you use that. So the next trick we're gonna learn is called the Conch Vault. It's one of my favorite vaults because there's a lot of variations you can do with it. You can add a flip in it, after it, and it's a lot of fun. So basically all it is a dive. You put both hands on the obstacle and then you get on your feet on the other side. So we're gonna start off just getting on top of the obstacle and then jumping off on the other side. So it's gonna look like this. You're gonna walk towards the obstacle, put your hands on, and then land with your feet on the obstacle and then jump on the other side. So you wanna make sure you practice that a few times. Hands, feet, jump on the other side. So you wanna make sure you push off of your hands so that you get a lot of height, and it'll make the Conch Vault easier later. So once you're comfortable with that progression, then we're gonna move on to the actual Conch Vault. So what you're gonna do, you're actually gonna do a dive towards the obstacle. It's gonna feel like you're doing a dive into the pool. And then you're gonna push off the obstacle with both hands enough that your legs can come through so they can land on the other side. If you don't push enough, then there won't be any space for your legs to come through and you'll clip the obstacle, and that can be very dangerous. So make sure you push properly. There's two ways you can approach this. You can jump with your feet separated, which is way better for momentum or for distance. But to learn, it might be easier for you to jump with your feet together. So just do what's most comfortable for you. So I'm more comfortable with the feet separated, so I'm gonna show you guys what that looks like. So I'm gonna run, feet separated, dive, push, and then land on the other side. Once you get comfortable, you can actually land with your feet separated on the other side too, so that you can keep running, which looks a little bit like this. So if you're trying to be efficient and trying to be fast, that's where you're gonna wanna use. Feet separated on the launch and feet separated on the landing. So a very common mistake that beginners have when they're learning this trick is they jump too close to the obstacle. If you jump too close, then your feet might clip the edge of the obstacle like this. So you wanna make sure you give yourself a little bit of distance and you jump far enough so that your feet don't clip. So it's gonna be about 3 feet when you're starting. As you get comfortable, it's gonna be even more than that because you'll have more momentum. So if you're not comfortable with the diving technique when you go like this, then you can try the technique that we use for a Conch Pre. A Conch Pre is just when you're trying to precision onto another ledge by doing a Conch Vault and landing specifically at one spot. So for the Conch Pre, there's a little bit of a different technique. You're gonna wanna dip your chest so that you get as much height from the Conch Vault. So as I'm running, I'm gonna dip my chest about the height of the obstacle so I can push off of it. This makes it a lot easier to get height after. So if you're having troubles by clipping the obstacle or being too low, having a difficult time getting your legs through your arms, you might want to try this technique instead. So it looks like this. I'm gonna approach the obstacle, dip my chest, and then push off of it. So it's very similar to the other one, and you can still do it off of 2 feet or feet separated. I'm gonna show you guys both. So the next trick we're gonna learn is another vault. This is one of the fastest vaults in parkour, and that's where it got its name, the speed vault. So it's basically a vault where your body's on an angle and just vaulting over an obstacle with one hand. So you're gonna wanna find yourself an obstacle like this at first, where you can vault on the side, because that's the best progression to learn this. So we're gonna get comfortable doing it on the side first, before we do it over the obstacle so that we don't get hurt. So you're gonna walk towards the obstacle, jump off of one foot. So since I'm putting my left hand on the obstacle, and I'm going on the right side of it, I'm gonna jump with my left foot. So it's gonna be left foot, left hand, and then land on the left foot again on the other side. So you can practice that a few times on the side of the obstacle like this. As you're practicing, you wanna try and go higher, higher every time, up until the point that you think you're above the line of the obstacle. So that seemed about right. So now we're ready to move on to doing it over the actual obstacle. So one thing you want to remember is make sure that you jump off of that last foot on the ground. If you don't jump enough, you might clip your foot or your knee on the way up, and that can be very painful if this is a concrete block and you're hitting your knee on the way up. So you want to make sure that you give yourself a bit of distance, about 3 feet or 2 feet away from it, and then jump off of that foot and then put your hand up. So it's going to look like this. Jump, left foot again, and you keep running. So if you're not comfortable landing with your feet separated, you can progress towards that and start with landing your feet together. So it's going to look like this. It's much easier to learn that, but as you get comfortable with it, you want to make sure you land with your feet separated because that's where you get the most speed. So the next move we're going to learn is a vertical wall run. So basically we're going to run towards the wall straight and try and climb on top of it by running up the wall. So this is extremely useful when you have a really tall obstacle, a tall wall that you're trying to get on top of, or you're trying to get over it. So to start off, we're gonna probably only put 2 steps on the wall, because any more than that, it'll get extremely hard, and any less than that is not enough. So you wanna make sure you know which one is your dominant and stronger leg. I know my left leg is the strongest, so I'm gonna use that as my last step on the wall, which means that the right foot will be the first one on the wall. So I'm gonna put right foot, left foot. So you're gonna start off by jogging towards the wall. You don't want to run too fast at first, because if you run too fast and you slip, you can hit your face into the wall and it can be dangerous. But if you're walking into the wall, you won't have any momentum, and then you'll try and jump up and nothing's gonna happen. So that's why we're gonna jog towards the wall and then put the foot that we picked on the wall first. So we're gonna put it on the wall like this with the knee bent so that you can push up. With your forward momentum and pushing up with your feet, that'll turn your forward momentum into height. So right after that you push off of your first foot, you want to do that with your other leg too. So I'm going to put my first foot about waist height, and then I'm going to try to put the second one about chest height, which means I should be going above that height after that. One mistake you want to try to avoid is having your first foot too high or too angled backwards. If your foot is angled backwards like this, then you'll push too far away from the wall and you won't be able to get your second leg on it like this. You can see that my left foot barely touched the wall because my chest was too far away from it. So you want to make sure you keep your chest close to the wall as well, because if you keep your chest close, that's what's going to enable you to climb up the obstacle. So you can practice that a few times without actually getting on top of the obstacle, just by kicking up, jumping up, and then landing back down on the ground, which will look like this. If it helps you at first, you can actually put your hands on the wall just to make sure that you're stabilized and you're a good distance away from it. If your hands can touch the wall, that means that your chest is not too far away from it. So when you're comfortable with all of that, then you're ready to actually climb the obstacle and go all the way up. So the next move we're gonna learn is called a Tic Tac. It's basically when you run towards the wall at a 45-degree angle, kick off one foot to get height. It's extremely useful when there's an obstacle beside it, maybe on the other side, where you kick and then grab the other obstacle, or maybe there's a fence here and you're trying to get over, so you get extra height by using the Tic Tac to get over it. So you're gonna start by picking which foot you're gonna jump off of the wall with. I'm gonna jump off with my left foot because that's my dominant leg, so I'm gonna start off on the left side of the obstacle. So I'm gonna run towards the obstacle at a 45-degree angle. If you're too close to the obstacle like this, then you'll be too close and you might not have enough grip and you might slip. So to get the optimal height and the optimal grip, you wanna make sure you use the 45-degree angle. So you're gonna run towards the obstacle, and about 3 feet away from it, like this, you're gonna put your other foot on the ground. Then you're gonna put the other foot on the wall like this. My knee is bent, which means that I can jump with my leg to get as much height as possible. So at first we're gonna practice and we're gonna stay low, but over time we're gonna try and go higher and higher. So it's gonna look like this. So you wanna make sure you stay low and you get comfortable with the trick before moving on. So when you're comfortable with that, you wanna try and get even more height. So you can see that since I was trying to get more height, I put my foot a little higher. So on my first attempt, I put it about waist height. On the last attempt, I put it a little above that. So if you want to go higher, you can put your foot a little higher, but make sure you don't put it too high. Because if you put it too high, you'll end up pushing yourself away from the obstacle and not getting height on the trick, like this. And it doesn't look nearly as good either. So I'm gonna give you guys a little challenge. I want you to tic tac as high as you can, and then as soon as you land on the ground, you want to go into the shoulder roll that we learned earlier. So it's gonna look like this. So from the tic tac, the next move we're gonna learn is the horizontal wall run. So basically is when you do a wall run while trying to get distance. This can be useful when there's a gap in between and you're trying to get over it, or if there's just another kind of obstacle in between. So unlike the tic tac, we're actually going to use 2 steps on this one. And as you get comfortable with the trick, then you can even use 3 steps. So for the tic tac, we used our strongest leg for the last step. We're going to do the same thing with the horizontal wall run. So that means that the first step is going to be different. So I'm going to start off with the 45-degree angle, just like the tic tac. But instead, I'm going to start with my left foot on the ground. So a couple feet away from the obstacle, I'm going to put my left foot on the ground, and then I'm going to put the other foot on the wall. So just like the tic tac, you want to make sure you don't put that foot too high. So I'm going to put it about waist height or even lower. It depends how comfortable you are with the trick, and it depends how much height you want to get. So as you put that foot on the wall, you want to make sure that that knee is bent. You never want to land with your leg straight because you won't have any power. So you always want to have your knee bent so that you can straighten it to jump. So we're going to put our foot on the wall with the knee bent so we can jump to get into the next step so we can put it even further. When you get your second foot on the wall, you're going to do the same thing. It's going to be a bent knee, and then you're going to jump off of it. So as you do this, you want to make sure that your chest is not too far away from the obstacle. If your chest is too far away from the obstacle, you might not get a good push. So you want to make sure it's a good angle away. But if it's too close to the obstacle, then you might not get enough grip. See, if my chest is close to the obstacle like this, and I'm trying to push down, my foot is just gonna slip and go down. So that's why you wanna make sure that your chest is a good angle away from the obstacle. So just like the other tricks, we're gonna start low. So you're gonna practice getting 2 steps on the wall, and then keep running after. As you get comfortable, we're gonna go higher and higher. So just like the tic tac, I'm going to challenge you guys to go as far as possible and as high as possible on the horizontal wall run, and then go directly in the shoulder roll after. So the next trick we're going to learn is called precision jumps. So it's basically when you jump with 2 feet from one obstacle to another and want to land on a specific spot like this. So first we're going to start off with the small gaps so you can get used to measuring the distance between the obstacle with your jump. So it's going to take some practice to getting used to that, but that's why we start off small. So basically you're going to find yourself a block or something like this so that you can get your toes just over the corner. By getting your toes over the corner, you can push off of that corner and get more distance. So when you're ready to jump, you're going to bend your knees and swing your arms backwards to wind up to get as much momentum as possible. As I do that, I'm also slightly going to lean my chest forwards because I'm going to want to jump forwards and not just jump up. So you're going to wind up for the jump, have your chest forwards, and then jump forwards. So you want to make sure you practice that so that every single time you land in the middle of the obstacle. So you want to make sure you don't land on the corner of the other obstacle because you can really hurt the arch of your feet if you land on it like this too much. So you want to try and land on top of it so that you can be safe. So as you get comfortable with that, you want to make sure you push the obstacle a little further and further every time so that you can get used to jumping even further. This is going to help you with every other move because it'll make your legs stronger and your jump stronger, so you'll have a better dive roll and better flips when you get into that. So we're going to distance the obstacle a little bit and then try that. So the next trick we're going to learn is called strides. So these are basically one-footed jumps alternating from one leg to the other. So this is extremely helpful because it'll help you strengthen your legs and your jump on both sides. So as usual with any trick, we're going to start off small. So you're going to try and find 2 gaps that are small for you. So these are small for my height, so I'm going to start off with this. And I have 2 gaps, which means 3 obstacles. So we're going to start off before the first obstacle, and we're going to run towards it. As you run, you're going to put one foot on it, as usual with the knee bent so that you can jump up. So you want to make sure that you jump up as much as possible while keeping some forward momentum. So if you do this properly, it should feel like you're just running on the ground while taking very big steps. So for example, I can run on the ground where these blocks are just by taking really big steps. So just lining them up like this. So if you're lucky enough to have an obstacle like this, then you can do the same progression I just showed you. So we're gonna start off by doing the one-legged jump and just land with both feet on the second obstacle like this. This should be extremely easy for you because if it's not easy, then landing on one leg will be really hard. So once that's really easy for you, then we're gonna land on the second obstacle with one leg. So it'll look like this. So you wanna make sure there's not too much force on that leg as you're landing, because if there's too much force, you won't be able to spring back up to jump to the next obstacle. So once you're comfortable with the last step, then we can land on the last obstacle with both feet. So it's gonna look a little bit like this. So at this point, you've jumped off both separate legs, which means that you've strengthened your jump on both of them, which is amazing when you're beginning parkour. So as you get comfortable with these, then you can try and find some places with even more obstacles when there's like maybe 10 of them, so you can just keep doing the strides and keep running like this. Thank you so much for watching my video, guys. If you want to see my latest video, click here. If you want to see another cool video, make sure you click right over here. And make sure to subscribe if you want to see other cool content like this. And as usual, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.